All right. So I've simply logged into our what we call our mega agency, which is just where we do all of our Oregon model development. It's just a fake, a fake agency where we kind of do all of our core work. And it's just the landing page where I'm at here. I'm going to go ahead and jump into, first let me double check my preference, Public Works. There we are. Need to make sure I'm in the right preference. So I'm just going to open the record list of the records that we've created in the testing and in this test environment, in this fake agency. In general, the Public Works records that we've created for test purposes and things like that. So the record list shows all of the Public Works tracking records that have been created to date and some other high-level information across the top here. Can I ask real quick, I'm maybe a step ahead, have either of you used Acela for any part of the building process or anything? Do you have any familiarity at all with it?
Yes.
Okay. Both of you or just?
Me as well. Yep. I use it a lot on the building site development permit side.
Go ahead and just demonstrate the Public Works record types and the application process. So for Public Works, we do offer 4 separate record types. We offer a standard inquiry, which is just kind of a generic shell type record that allows you to document, as it says, incoming, like inquiries over the counter. You can attach records, maps, pictures, anything appropriate there. Sometimes this inquiry record could be very helpful for documenting when companies or large development type firms or whatever are shopping your area, your jurisdiction, they come in and they start asking a lot of questions. What would it cost to develop this parcel or that parcel, or to do this, or to bring infrastructure here or there, or what have you? This inquiry kind of allows you to document some of those asks, and then to somewhat use it like a little bit of a reference, library to some extent. So the next person potentially comes in and asks maybe about developing that same great commercial property, parcels for sale. You could refer back to your original inquiry where you may have done a lot of the research already. How does it have infrastructure? What's going on with the property, and so on. So this can be just a really helpful record type for documenting kind of information and customer inquiry and that kind of thing. The investigation record is a record that allows you to document work without permits. It's been reported or self-reported by your inspectors in the field or by another work group, like building, for instance, may report some things that are happening out in the field that they're seeing or any of that kind of stuff. So this investigation record just allows you to track that. The project record is unique to Public Works. We developed this module with 5 agencies, 3 cities, 2 counties, and the project record we heard was really a very important tool for Public Works engineering, because a lot of work that is done is project oriented or project initiated. So this project record allows you to create an information only, like umbrella type record, to put in all of the project details and information, attach high-level project documents. If there's maybe a project accounting code that's been attached to the project, if it's capital improvement project, just all these kinds of, parts and pieces that might be important, kind of high-level information about the project. Then the Public Works tracking record is the permit record type. As permits or applications for work are coming in, if they are associated to a given project, you can relate them. So you can create kind of the project umbrella record, and then you can attach or relate individual permits that are related to that or roll up to that project. So these are what we offer. I'm going to go ahead and just kick off an application just so we can talk about the basic application, just kind of what we ask in general terms here. By the way, you cannot apply online to date for Public Works. It's parcel based, and out of the box, Acela only provides us an address-based application template, so to speak. And so because planning and public works engineering are both parcel based, meaning you can apply for work on undeveloped parcels in planning and in public works and engineering, they're parcel based. And so we have not developed yet. It looks like it'd be something that e-permitting would develop independent of Acela, let's put it that way, or maybe in cooperation with Acela. Selena might be able to add more to that, but to date, we do not have an online application. We are looking at developing a right-of-way online application, but because to date, our online application template is address-based, that right-of-way record type would still be address-based. So we would come up with a mechanism for some sort of, address. I say that kind of in air quotes for people, because right-of-way is not addressed, right? For people to be able to apply online in some sort of kind of generic way. So we kind of have that in the wind as well.
That makes sense. So basically, just to reiterate so I understand, then the application process would still be like submit a hard copy application and then we would upload it to Acela and create that record type. Or like we would have to create it manually, however we got the information that
yes,
it needed.
Exactly. So whether they faxed it in, scanned it in, emailed it over at the counter, handed it to you, whatnot. Yes, that would currently be the intake process. We ask kind of all the basics on every Acela application type, kind of the who, what, where, why, when, what is the project? Where is it occurring? So parcel based, parcel is required for public works minimally. An address is not, because there might not be a structure on the parcel. An owner, however, is required because every parcel is owned. So we get the where. We get the who. The applicant is in fact required in the intake process. You can attach other people to the record, however, it is not required. This would be, project managers and what have you, other people that just might be party to the project. And another who is you can attach licensed professionals. That includes architects, engineers, and a variety of other non-contractor type licensed folks, landscape contractors, what have you, but also all the contractor data is available to you through professionals as well. And then this is the intake. And the only reason I always demo this, forgive me, is that it is very minimal. And that is what we heard from the 5 agencies that we developed this module with. We heard that more often than not for public works engineering, that there was not a lot of information up front on the application process, that oftentimes a lot of the information was researched, exchanged, what have you, over the course of the project. And so the intake has been minimized to the bare necessities. The Public Works module is driven exclusively off of what we call service areas, which are these 3 checkboxes here. And we're on the verge of adding a 4th. We have an enhancement that's been approved to add a 4th, a little bit more of a catch-all for kind of all the other odds and ends, so to speak, that public works development might be involved in or engineering might be involved in. But to date, these are the 3 service areas that we offer permit details or the permit process for, which is right now the public works development side of things. Right away and easement, erosion sediment control, which is your grading and fill, and then driveway, sidewalk, and curb cut. So it tends to be, and all 3 of these would be involved for new construction, right? So these service areas are integral to kind of the setup of the Public Works module and the Public Works permit. So these kind of kick off the framework, so to speak, of the permit process or the permit itself in Public Works. The application types are customized. So we would collect we'd provide you with a submittal form, and you would tell us exactly what application types you want to specifically permit for in West Linn. Type of project, this is model, but it's pretty, high level global stuff. Construction, improvement, others, the type of project, the type of work. These are just standardized. You probably look for these are familiar from building, and we just try to use these consistently across modules where they apply. None of this information is required in the intake except for a service area, minimally at least one. However, you can check 2 or all 3. If all 3 are involved in the project, like I mentioned, the case would be like new construction, a new 1 and 2 family single dwelling would likely include, on the public works side, it would kind of invoke all 3 of these to some extent, right? And so if you wanted to permit for new construction on the public works side, you would potentially checkbox all 3 of these, and you would have an application type that is something to that effect, like we have in our example here, a residential permit. But you, again, customize list, right? So the red star indicates required fields. All that is required is an app type and a service area. This other information, forgive me, and a detailed project purpose, which just is a little bit more specific than the description of work that's at the top of the application form. We see people at the top say right away, and then we see people down here say, maybe dates, what it's about, if it's construction related, if it's, whatever it is, we see a lot more specific information being put in here, but it could be the same as what you put in the top of the application as well. So that's the intake form. And then I'm just going to get into one of these records we've already created here. Same look and feel, obviously, as the building records, no difference there. It still has the header row that has, the record number, the project name, the description of work, the status, property data, people data, and then the workflow. The workflow is exactly the same as building for public works, except that the plan review tasks are named differently. So I'm just going to scroll down here to the workflow tab. Again, both of you are familiar with that from the building side of the house. I'm going to expand the workflow here. Exactly the same as building, meaning intake, plan review, completeness. This is an administrative only task that allows you to consolidate and kind of wrap up the plan review process, determine if there's any additional fees, and then ultimately issue. Inspection, this is just a placeholder while the inspections are happening over here on the inspection tab, and then ultimately you close out the record. So these review tasks are model. I get asked that a lot. People are like, oh, can we rename this one or that one? And incidentally, no, we do not rename these tasks. They are model, Oregon model. There is an additional task I just noticed, that's why I paused for a moment, that is missing from this particular record. But there is another task now on the Public Works tracking record type available, simply called additional review. And that additional review, it's in addition to these 5. The additional review task is, again, meant to be flexible enough as kind of that catch-all potentially. If you're an agency that works with like a Power and Light or any other third-party work group, or even somebody internal, they don't have to be external or third party, they could be internal, but an additional work group that maybe participates in the plan review process on various types of applications. We hear sometimes in public works that could be police or fire. So, like if it's right away, maybe it's event oriented, right? Right away event. Then a lot of times we are seeing that agencies need the additional review in that instance or in that application type for police or fire review or approval, so to speak, right? We have the Public Works Development Review. This is the primary review task. However, you can use any of these reviews as appropriate. We've provided these different reviews to be flexible enough for all agencies to use the record type across a majority of the Public Works Engineering application types. Now, does that mean they're going to fit every single process or every single application type? Sometimes no. But I immediately tell agencies, even at the demo level, don't get too wrapped around the axle with some of the naming conventions, especially up in here, because I immediately have somebody, in a demo and they say, oh, we don't have a transportation work group, we're never going to use that. And I'm like, well, you could still use this review task, but just essentially assign it to a different work group. This is just a mechanism, a way for you to document a plan review from a certain assigned party, right? So the naming conventions on these don't get too wrapped around that. So we would do it. Oh, go ahead. Was that
makes
question?
Sense. No.
Oh, okay. Good. So, we bring in an intake. You have all the same options as you do in building to essentially say you need more information before you can make, move this forward to plan review. You can make it ready for plan review and then make your decisions about what plan review tasks are going to be applicable based on the scope of work. So in this example, simply, this is a right-of-way application. You would make a decision about who needs to review right away, maybe transportation and engineering, let's say. If you were to save those results or those choices, ultimately they would be added to the record as the review tasks. So I'm just going to go into app intake here. I'm going to make this ready for plan review, kind of the standard business case. I'm going to save my result. And it's going to bring up those same check boxes. We call those parallel tasks. It's a list essentially of the review tasks available on the record type. You will make a decision about which apply based on the kind of application that this is. Maybe, like I said, I would say engineering transportation. I would save my choices. Application intake is now green in a completed section, because it's done. So I'm going to minimize that section. I don't need to see a bunch of extra stuff. And orange is always the active task. Notice it adds both the plan reviews to be concurrent, potentially, if they could actually be done concurrently, right? Same thing in building. All the review tasks add simultaneously because they're assumed to be able to take place concurrently. We do offer Bluebeam. I don't know if Westland is using that yet. We offer Bluebeam to all of our participating agencies to do electronic plan review. So if you're not already using that, note that is an available option for you as well to do electronic plan review if you're interested in kind of moving your agency into that space. These reviews would be assigned, ideally. And we would go through all this, in training. But these reviews would be assigned to individual, persons or work groups. And then there is a page called the My Task page that allows you to then monitor those assignments. So I could say, show me all of the active assigned Public Works review tasks, and I could see who they have been assigned to here in this column that I'm circling over. I can manage when they're due, so I can know, which one to take first. I should take oldest first, these kinds of things. Any of these column headers here can be used for sorting. So, if you had quite a list of assigned reviews, Marina, like maybe you will, if you're, kind of a one-person show, right? And you could sort them by address. You could sort them by the status of the record or, whom they're assigned to, the due date, when they were assigned to you. Maybe it's more about when they were assigned to you. So you should take, review the oldest item first, that kind of thing. As these lists, kind of grow in quantity potentially, you have options for sorting within the My Task page. This is a page that we highly recommend for new users because it allows you to manage field inspections, which, by the way, do you do field inspections for Public Works in Westland?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so it allows you to manage inspections. It allows you to manage the workflow, which is the life cycle of the record, you know, from beginning to end, the high level stuff, intake, review, issuance, inspection, done. It allows you to manage any electronic document review. So again, if you're interested in Bluebeam, some of this can be very helpful. And then allows you to manage activity assignments. Activities are kind of a newish thing that we are breaking into more and more. For Public Works, one of the most popular activities that's available is your ability to track a bond. As soon as, if there's a bond required for the project, notice as soon as I selected bonding from the activity type of a list of available options, it brought up all of these details down here. I can record the date they were bonded, the bond number, the bond inspection date, and again, with further training, this bond inspection date should also become the due date on this activity. So then it allows you to know when to schedule the inspection. Activities are super slick. They are probably one of the most underutilized functional areas in Acela to date. They allow you to create tickler reminders, not only for yourself as maybe a case or project manager. They allow you to assign administrative activities to other staff in your group as, you know, might be appropriate or helpful. They allow you to set like due dates, kind of triggers, or, you know, for yourself or for important, you know, tasks like the bond inspection due date would be ideal to put as the due date on this task so that when you're managing your activities, you can sort things by due dates. Due date with today, within a week, within 2 weeks, for myself or for my total department. You know, there's all kinds of options here, or I can simply just say, show me all of the bonding activities for my entire department, and you can manage those, you know, at a higher level, like at a management or, you know, kind of overview type level. So lots of kind of little moving parts. As you select, let me cancel out that activity, last little piece here. These numbered tabs kind of run the show in Public Works. 01 was the intake information that, you know, we populated. We selected a service area in this test record. We said that it was right-of-way sidewalk. And then we have a whole bunch of other information that wasn't offered at intake, however, is available, not required, to keep that flexibility there for you, available for you to record. So if there's any structural information that might be important to this application type, any site information that might be important to this application type, impervious, fill volumes, flood hazard, landslide, retaining wall, and Public Works project kind of level information. If there is a project account number that's been assigned, you can record that. If it's storm sewer, you see the values here. If it's street improvements or the type of sidewalk, I did say this was right-of-way sidewalk, so potentially maybe I'd want to fill that in. And then some planning setback details. We hear that these can be helpful for a few application types. The key here with Public Works, like I mentioned, is these service areas. As you select a service area, the system expects that you are going to fill in the corresponding numbered tab. So I said right away. So the system is going to expect that I'm going to fill in something in the right-of-way corresponding tab. This is all of the right-of-way application details that are available to you to use. So I can say the right-of-way type, who the work's being performed by, if there's insurance indemnity on file, if there's security deposit, there's that bond. And if there's a bond type, if I were to say there was a bond, ideally, I would also add an activity to track that bond. If it's event oriented, you know, that's kind of these items here. Just a free text field, about 1,500 characters here available for you to document any additional information. If it's utility related, franchise agreement on file, hook-on agreement on file, any other details. If it's an easement, if it's use or vacation, if it's agreement related, any details, any special conditions, the dates and the times. If it's encroachment, from and to dates, times. And then if there's any system connections to infrastructure involved in the right-of-way activity or application, I can document those. Now, had I selected any of the other check boxes, or all three, maybe if this was a new construction as an example, then it would expect I would have filled in information in the corresponding tabs. So I'm just going to show you what's available to you. For sidewalk, you have the detail here, the repair number of panels or the sidewalk and footage, if it includes an ADA ramp or a parklet. Curb cut, number of curb cuts. If it's driveway related, the category of driveway, the type of work being done, change in access, modification, new access, removal, temp access, so on. All of the gory details about the driveway. The current access surface, proposed access surface, and any added detail. If it's a curb street, a culvert, the culvert diameter, this is still in the driveway section here. Site distance left and right, the grade and the grade percentage. And then lastly, for the erosion and settlement, which is your grading and fill, just a free text field for added notes or information, the nature of the activity. Construction, stormwater, runoff, flow to, to manage your sediment control here. And then the work site area, height, depth, width, length, total construction, total disturb, total site acreage, existing surface, surface replacement, and backfill. And then the excavation in cubic yards, imported fill. If there's dust control in the type, we have a county, Marion County, that uses a only allows a certain dust control product called, I'm going to say it wrong, lignin or lin, I'm not sure how I pronounce it. They requested this many years ago. The drainage basin is a custom list because this would be based on your locale, right? Specific to your region. These are the national floodplain values. So if you wanted to record or need to record the floodplain, then of course, if it's hillside, wetlands, swale, pipe, if there's a control mechanism, and then if you're an agency that has to manage MS4 permit details, and I understand that we have some new information kind of on the horizon around the MS4. So I imagine there's going to be some enhancement coming here soon. So that's kind of the highlight reel for Public Works. Is there any questions I can answer at kind of the demo level?
I think at this point, most of my questions sort of are transitioning into training level, but that was super informative and I just didn't even know how much you could fit in there. So that's really impressive.
Yeah, definitely. And again, if you have that familiarity with building, let me get this kicked open here. We have also available the workflow email notification in Public Works on the review or throughout the workflow. This again, like activities, this is kind of a really underutilized, high functioning, item that's available to you. And I'm starting to see agencies getting super creative about how they're using workflow email notification to save themselves yards of time, lots of calls and external emails and notifications to their applicants, or any of the other people, by the way, associated to the record, if you had a licensed professional or if you had email for the property owner. And then these right-hand two columns are internal notification. So let's say, for instance, Marina, you've been assigned this engineering review. You go, you pull the plans or you open them in Bluebeam, wink, wink, to do an electronic review. And maybe there's you're approving it with conditions. This is a right-of-way application. Maybe as soon as you say approve with conditions, a comment is required. And I'm seeing agencies do this super cool thing where they say, see documents on this application using the link provided in this email. If you are not familiar with this workflow email notification, the template email includes a deep link online directly to this application. So when I elect to send this, if I can get my scrolly to work here, I want to send this to my applicant. I want to, geez whiz, just think my scroll for some reason is not working well. But I'm referring the customer over to this document tab. And the agencies that are doing this have written up some sort of like plan review letter. They've generated some sort of like template, agency letter, and they scan it in, or they've done it electronically. They just saved it to the documents tab. And they just refer the customer directly into that. See documents using the link provided in this email. See plan review letter, whatever you've called it, right?
Right. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we do in our building permit reviews is we upload like an approved set of plans and then tell them to reference that.
Excellent. Do you use workflow email to do that?
Yes, and I love it.
Excellent. I'm so excited. I love that people are kind of really, getting super smart about this and starting to refer the customer into other tabs, into other areas to get work done and to kind of push information out to them. So that's exciting. I'm glad to hear that. The last little piece here, because you just reminded me, Marina, is the Public Works application or permit relies heavily on conditions of approval. I don't know are you using those in building at all?
No. Sometimes we add a conditions standard.
Oh, yes. Okay.
But I've never used the conditions of approval.
So conditions of approval allows you AKA conditions for final. So these conditions that you would indicate are specific to exactly what you are approving. And so maybe that's kind of equivalent to the letter that you do in or if you do a letter in building, over here in the Public Works permit side of it, you would actually include that information in what we call the COA, condition of approval. What this is it creates a text block in its simplest form. It creates a text block that is going to be pulled into the permit. It will become the body of the permit. So whatever I drop into this condition of approval, I might, add some bullets, and I might tell them, must be 20 feet long. I'm just making stuff up here. Must be done with asphalt. Must have, 15-foot turnaround, etc. You kind of get the idea. I'm just faking some stuff here. But I would add this level of detail to the condition of approval for exactly what we are allowing or approving them to construct, do, connect to, materials, lengths, code citations, web addresses, you name it. And as you get really great at this, you start sending us kind of canned pieces of information that you find that you're consistently repeating, and we build a library, a comment library for you. And then you go to that library, you select Public Works, and all of your comments are listed here, your little canned snippets. And all you do is select the number and boom, it just instantly drops it in full into the condition of approval. So you don't have to, forgive me, remember the citation or the length or the this or that, whatever. Very, very quickly, because I don't want to steal too much time from Selena, but I just want to show you Marion County. This is where the rubber really hits the road. These guys have taken that standard comment library for Public Works, and they're probably our most prevalent user of Public Works. And they've gone to town, I tell you. Let me go down into their workflow. Standard comment library. So let me see if I can stretch this window just a hair. Oh, I can. Good. There we go. So look at this stuff that they have here. So they've built, it's under jurisdiction. Over here on the right, I know it's kind of maybe a little hard to see. There's a drop down here for the type, because we can qualify, the comment groups, maybe, groups of pieces of information. So obviously they have a section called access. These are all of their standard comments. Access width for commercial use is not to exceed the following per Marion County Engineering Standards Table 6. Look at all that detail. Who wants to type that? And then as you really kind of get going here, I mean, look, fire emergency, it looks like gate required, private easement, residential width, driveway closure, that might be permanent driveway closure, special provisions. See all this actual adopted Marion County code? This is all very specific to them, right? And then they have tons of these. They do like an annual blanket permit for dust control. There's that lignin, there's that product, that dust control product.
This is very cool.
Yeah, and I demonstrate them because they go to town on this. They really take huge advantage. Here's event-oriented right-of-way. Flaggers, bike requirements. And look at some of these are so long. Part 1, part 2, part 3. So they'd have to add, all 3 of these to get the full section A all the way down to L here. And and on and on. And then they just send us, this is a spreadsheet kind of process. They send us updates. Here's their right-of-way standard comments. Brush clearing, tree trimming, filming, gravel road crossing, guide signs, irrigation crossings, bonds. Here's like some bond detail. And then they just send us updates. They send us the same spreadsheet and they say, oh, hey, Kelly, turn in a ticket. Here's our standard comment spreadsheet. These citations have changed. They send us the updates.
Awesome. So it's like most of the updating process is through the spreadsheet.
Yeah, the first pain is getting the library built, right? I mean, when we first built this, it was weeks of work. But once it was built, now they just send us updates on the spreadsheet, real easy.
Awesome. Thank you for showing me that.
You bet. And I don't want to steal all Selena's time here, Selena. If you want to go ahead and do planning.
Sure. Why don't I go ahead and I'll share my screen?
Sure. Let me stop sharing. We're still recording.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. And can you all see my screen now with Benton County's configuration environment here?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to back up a little bit. Just it sounds like you've used the building module, but not as much the other modules, and just a little history as to why they look, both planning and public works, why we have just like this tracking record. Whereas in building, you have a bunch of different individual record types. And this is the mechanism, the reason it's built like this is how we're able to provide it to you for free without violating our contract with Excella. So while ideally we would have separate record types, in order to do that, each individual jurisdiction would have had to buy licenses for planning and a license for public works and then pay maintenance on top of that. And so instead we got creative and figured out this way of doing this, which keeps us able to provide it for free, but not having Excella mad at us for violating our contract with them. So just a little heads up on that. So we built planning before public works. And so I think we learned a little bit in doing the public works module, all of those separate tabs or those areas that expand. We don't have that in planning. We have instead, show you the planning tracking record type. Code enforcement is also in the planning module. It's another record. It's the investigation record. And it works similarly to the way in which the public works and the planning tracking record work. Create this application. And a very simple application, you know, description of work, project name, you can start with a parcel, you can start with an address. You have to have an applicant, as we do on all applications. You can also put in an agent for an applicant. Professionals you don't use too often in the planning side of things, but we do have like architects potentially, which you could load in, just like on the building side. And then here is the bulk of the application. And the way in which we make this useful to you is that this application type drop down, just like on the public works side of things, most of those drop downs were things that we populate with your information. So we're in Benton County's test environment, and this is Benton County's list of planning applications. This field is a searchable field. So even though officially this is a single planning tracking record, you can do a search for all floodplain minor variance records or all forest dwelling records. All of that's going to come up and be very readily accessible. We also have a process type drop down, and again, you can name it. You might do type 1, 2, 3, 4, or like here they do legislative, ministerial, etc. We have an internal tracking number. We have a couple of jurisdictions, Benton County is one of them, that wanted to continue to use the tracking numbers that they had in their planning department already. Most of our jurisdictions don't do that, but that is an option for you. We have the checkbox for farm and forest use for applications. We're helping to pull those applications when you need to do your reporting to Land Conservation and Development. We have zoning drop downs. Again, this is populated with your information. Zoning 1, zoning 2. We've got use category. We've got comp plan designation. Again, something that you get to populate. Current uses, proposed uses, surrounding uses, number of units, some information about, you know, surfaces, existing buildings, trees. And again, you would decide none of that is required. The only required field is this one here, the type of application, but you would then decide, you know, what you're going to use of that on any given application. We have a little section for pre-application type. And again, you can choose, we have a couple of jurisdictions that track a couple of different types of pre-application conferences, and then the types of projects that you want to kind of keep track of what those conferences were about. Appeals, and let me get down here a little bit further. Floodplain development, trees, long-range planning. And then we have a couple of, these are called tables, and you may have seen some of these on the building side of things, but these allow us, it's almost like creating an application within the application. You can see that on the sign table here, there are tons of different things that you can track. So beyond what we've got up here, which is fairly, you know, bare bones, there are tons of fields that you could use to track in a sign application. Also a fair number of things on a tree application. And again, here you can designate a type of, you know, application, what types of trees you track, etc. And then we have also a floodplain table with a lot more information than what we had up on the checkbox there. Time tracking allows you to track if you had like a grant and you wanted to track the time of different planners. It's fairly straightforward. You'd just be putting in the number, you know, the amount of time, the date, and who it was. And then this whole table can be exported into a spreadsheet through the CSV export for purposes of billing. So it doesn't do any advanced calculations, but it does let you record the information and plop it into a spreadsheet. So that's the basic form. I'm going to shut out of that and actually not fill it out. And then we'll look at some of Benton County's records here. So one thing, although I did mention, so in the search field, I can search for any of those application type things and get to them very quickly. The only, you know, disadvantage on this screen here to having just the individual record type is that application type, even though I can search for it and get to it, does not appear on this home screen on the record page, right? So it's kind of buried in the information on the application. I can get to those applications very quickly, but I don't see that here on the home screen. And so what most of our jurisdictions have done is some version of what Benton County is doing here, which is that they use their application prefixes up here in project name. Benton County also happens to track its, again, they still use the internal numbering. That's unusual. Most jurisdictions just put that application type prefix up here, and then the applicant or the owner's name here. And so and then you can search by project name. This is also a sortable field, so you can kind of like alphabetically see all these, you know, the land uses or your LUX or your, you know, partitions would be all grouped together on this home screen. And then you've got the description of work, just like you do on the building side of things, and the rest of the information. So that's one of the ways that we kind of maneuver around, you know, again, single application type, but the way to easily get to and be able to track the information for really the variety of types of applications that you use on the planning side of things. Let's just open up one of these planning applications, and you'll see that pretty much what Kelly showed you in Public Works, and then what you're already used to in the building side of things. We've tried to keep things really consistent between the modules. And so the tabs over here are the different actions or pages that you can go to. Actually, not pages, actions that you can do on a particular permit are pretty much laid out the same, and you pretty much have the same options. So you've got your summary, the activities, just like Kelly showed you on the Public Works module, and that you have available on the building side of things, you can use in planning. And on planning, where we had in Public Works, you know, you had bonding and stuff. Here in planning, we have a couple of specific things like the appeal period, hearing, and planning notifications. And if I click on planning notification, some additional fields show up. So I could use this to track when I sent certain notices out, you know, so just as a CYA to make sure I've got that information tracked here on the application itself. Or again, like Kelly was showing, you can also use it to set yourself a deadline. So if this is your planning application and you need to remember when to send out notices, you can set dates. You can set the status as not started yet. And you can give it a priority. And then on your activity tab, or that activity page that Kelly showed you, we have filters, and that would let you see the deadlines that you had set up for different notifications. And again, that's your choice in terms of how you want to manage your workflow, but that is one of the options that you have using activities. Cancel out of that.
Can I add one quick note, Selena, just because it's a big point for this module is that appeal period activity is kind of integral to use of the planning application or planning modules. It allows you to set the appeal period, due date, or time frame so that you can manage incoming appeals. Yep,
absolutely. So the other, I don't know how much you use this on the building side of things, but this is, I think the internal comments, on building this says comments internal. Here it just says comments, but they are still internal. Especially if you're a fairly small shop or you assign all of your individual planning records to an individual planner. This can be really a powerful and really simple and easy to use tool. You know, call with applicants, and, you know, whatever you said, you know, blah, 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 or whatever things, or somebody's calling you, or activities that you've done, and then you submit that. And this is unfortunately a bug that happens with this one particular, with the comments, the very first one you do, it does this bug sometimes. And so we're just gonna refresh. Not. And we'll try it again. And this time it works. And so you can see it puts in my user ID, whatever it is that I type into that field, and the date that I did it. And the most recent thing is on the top. And then also you see how many comments were put in here. So again, for yourself, you can use it just as a, like, these are the things that I've done on this particular application. And then other people, you know, who might come into the application can see that series of, you know, comments or tasks that have been done or conversations that have been had with applicants or with other people on a project. And so I think that's a really simple and powerful tool. The communications, Kelly kind of went over that already, and you've seen that on the building side of things. Conditions of approval, just like we just went through in Public Works. Again, you have that opportunity to create that kind of cover sheet of series of comments. You can have your own planning specific comments and use those to build you know, to build documentation. You're not tending to issue the permits in the same ways that you do in Public Works or on the building side of things, but you can still build that type of documentation using the conditions of approval. Like we saw on the Public Works side of things, there are additional fields. So this was that application type. If you can, this was what we were going through on the SPEAR form, you know, on the new form, all of this information down here. But these additional fields popped up after the application was created, where there's a final order number, ordinance number, resolution number, annexation, a completeness determination date, appeal deadline, expiration date, and some additional notes. So again, you know, you'd want to decide how you want to use these or when you want to use them, but they are available, some extra fields for recording things. Document tabs, obviously documents are used a lot on the planning side of things. We have some jurisdictions that use the documents a lot and use the controls and put a lot of stuff out there for the public to be able to see about planning applications. And again, that's a choice that you would have to be able to make quite a bit of transparency about certain projects available through posting them on documents and opening them up and allowing the public to see them. Let's see.
Can I add one thing, Selena?
Yep.
You can issue a development permit now out of the planning module. So if you are an agency and your planning work group manages floodplain, so there's an option: floodplain permit, tree permit, sign permit. So sign code, you can actually, our workflow has been enhanced in the last few years to allow you to actually issue a kind of air quotes permit. So if that is something that is, and really anything, those are just examples I provided you. But if that is something that would be useful to you, that's a newish offering.
And I'm going to hop into workflow, which again, so we talked about on the record page there, how you can use the project name to kind of get around the constraint of having a single, technically a single application type. Workflow is the other place where, where there's a downside to having only the single application type. As you can see over here, we've leveraged all of the things that are available in building. They're also available in Public Works. So you have all those tools available. This is the only other place where, again, ideally, you would have a series of different planning applications, and some of them might have a very simple over-the-counter type of workflow, and some of them might have a medium complexity workflow, and then maybe a more advanced workflow, right? Like we do on the building side of things, where a trade permit has a pretty simple workflow and a structural permit has a more complex one. So in order to get around that, or to make it workable, what we did was we got creative with the use of statuses. So we created, and again, just like with the Public Works module, we didn't just kind of like willy-nilly that we were going to build a planning module and make it like this. We worked with a group of jurisdictions to help kind of develop the workflow and the whole application for planning. And so this is the built out all the different steps that are available. There's application intake, just like on, you know, and all applications start with that. Pre-application meeting, staff review, staff report decision, hearing, appeal, and closeout. We know that these two things in the group, when we put together the jurisdictions, there was a lot of discussion about what to name this series of tasks or this area of the workflow. And like Kelly said, you know, it's one of those things where you will internally want to decide, you know, how to use these different workflow tasks and how they translate to your project or your process. And again, it's more difficult than in building, where building codes division, because there's kind of a statewide code and a statewide process, there's a little bit more you know, a consistency between jurisdictions. So it's easier to set up one workflow and most things, you know, most people call those things the same thing. In planning, obviously, it's all locally adopted and you may have a different process. But again, these have been quite workable. And the way in which you navigate through this, and so that you don't have to hop through each and every one of these tasks every time, is by using the statuses. So for example, if I'm using this application to do a pre-application, to track a pre-application conference or a pre-application meeting, I would take application intake, I would set the status to pre-application meeting requested, and it would move me right over to pre-application meeting. When I completed that meeting, if this application or this record is only going to be used to track that, then there's a status, I think it's pre-application meeting completed. And from that status, it closes out the record. There's another option though, if you were just going to use that and then you wanted to move on to staff review or staff report and decision, there's another status that would let you move on to that staff review. So that's how you use the statuses to be able to jump around or kind of to tailor this workflow to the type of application that you have. So again, there's another from application intake, there's another status that you can use to jump right into staff review. And there's another status that you can use to jump right into staff report decision. And that's how, and as part of the implementation process, you would get some training on those different statuses and which ones do which. And again, you would want to have some conversation amongst yourselves about how you want to use this workflow and which of these steps is important to you under which circumstances. So again, even though it is not tailored to each individual type of planning application, we've built a lot of flexibility into it and got pretty creative with the use of statuses to be able to allow you to kind of tailor that to your needs for any different application. Other than that, all of these things you're familiar with. If you've used the building side of things, we have all, you know, documents, you know, related records, sets, all of that stuff is available on the planning module side of things. So any questions about that or anything you want me to show you besides what we've covered?
Yeah, thanks. This is Darren. I guess a couple of questions. So one, would there be any kind of support for getting old applications into the system? Or is that something that we would be on our own doing?
Well, so old applications, how are you currently tracking them? Are they on paper? Are they in an electronic system, a spreadsheet?
Yeah, we keep them in our electronic records system.
Meaning like, which is what? Is that scanned copies or is that?
Yeah, scanned PDF copies.
Okay, so a scanned PDF copy, we can't really do a data conversion of that, right? Like if you had a spreadsheet, we could do a data conversion and create, you know, application numbers for that. For the documents, I'm not sure. So currently, how do you access those old records? You search for an address and you find or a parcel and you find that documentation, or?
Yeah, an address or the application, the internal application identification number.
Okay. Unfortunately, you know, again, we would usually, if you had an electronic database with the information in, you know, in fields, we could do a data conversion and create those records. For what you're describing, the best we could do would be you can attach parcels to documents or links on parcels to the documents potentially. We've done that with a couple of jurisdictions where, so you would do a search here in Excel on a parcel, and then when you got to that parcel, there would be a link there that would take you to those records in your electronic system. Although I don't know, I don't know how much benefit there is to that. So.
Okay. All right. And then, and then is there a way to connect data in the planning module to the building module? So for instance, a subdivision is done on a parcel, then it gets divided into 12 new parcels or lots, and then then a home is built on each lot. Is there any way to tie all of the building permits to that original subdivision?
Yeah,
That's a good question.
Yeah, you can. So you would create a record for those subdivisions, I'm assuming? An application record?
Yes, yeah. So we would take the application, put all the relevant information in there, approve it, assuming it gets approved, and then 6 months, then Public Works gets Public Works permits to do the site development work, and then after that's all done, then building receives building permits to build individual single-family homes on each of the lots. So is there a way to connect all of those things together so you could click on a parcel and it would then show you all of the permits associated with that parcel? Planning, engineering.
There are two ways of doing that. One thing, and maybe you're not aware of this already, but if you already go to your reference data, so your parcels, here, you will actually see if I search for a parcel and I find it, there's a tab that shows you all the records already associated to that parcel where that's one of the advantages of using reference data. So one way of doing it would be this: you would be able to go to a parcel and then you'd be able to, on the records tab, see every single record that's attached to that parcel. The other way of doing it is that you can do related records. So just like in building, maybe you tie together the building, the structural, the electrical, the plumbing records, and you relate them. You can relate across the modules also. But that takes a step of somebody relating them, right? So somebody would have to, the structural permits come in, you search, you either start at the planning side of things, search for those structural permits and say, yes, tie them together. The parcel data, that's automatically going to happen, that ability to see all the records, because you pulled that parcel into a record, and therefore it's going to, Excel automatically tracks all the records at a parcel up on that reference data.
Okay.
To add to that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so each type of record, whether building, planning, or Public Works, would all have to input the parcel data into the record in order to tie them together.
Well, that would be one day. Yes. I mean, generally you're kind of required to have a parcel address on any type of application in the system, right? So you're not necessarily an address, but definitely a parcel on the planning side of things or the Public Works side of things. And once you pulled that into an application or into a record, then it's automatically, you're going to be able to find it up here on that parcel page, just automatically.
Okay.
But you could also relate them, and you can also, when you do a search, so on the search page up here on the record page, if I do a search by parcel or by address, it searches across the modules, Excel does. And so you would automatically see all the Public Works, the planning, the building applications on a particular parcel. When you did this search, they would all come back in that search.
Okay.
I
use three different ways.
Sorry to interrupt you, Selena. I use the related record function, Darren, too, with what I do in correlation with the building department. And I've seen Adam set it up, and it doesn't seem too complicated. Like once you set it, it tracks it indefinitely. So it's sort of like a one and done.
Yeah, relating records is not difficult. It's just that somebody does have to do that, right? You basically just, you go to you open up a record, take us there. We go to related records. And you basically search for search for the other records, or you can search by a number of different fields, right? So you can search by parcel, you can search by whatever, and find all the existing records, select them, and that will tie them all together. And once they're related like that, you can also update them all together, right? So you can make some types of updates across all of them, if there was a change that you happen to want to do that. But it is quite straightforward. Did you have another question?
No, I think that covers my question. So essentially it would just take a lot of upfront coordination with your teams to make sure that we get all of our information in correctly before it goes live and we start using it, like zoning and application types and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we would give you we would give you what we call submittal documents, which are basically kind of like spreadsheet things that walk you through what you can put in the fields, and then you would fill out those spreadsheets, and we would load that, and that would be done in a test environment, so you'd have a chance to review it and make sure we got it right before you went live.
Okay, all right. Yeah, this is very helpful. I appreciate it. I think we'll have to,
Great.
Do some internal discussion about if we want to pursue this, and if we do, how we want to use it.
Okay, sounds good. Kelly, did you have anything additional that you wanted to add?
No, I was just gonna tell Darren that I can send him the planning workflow document if that would be helpful. Because I think for planners, it's helpful to kind of have your head around kind of the workflow. That is what makes the planning module completely unique from any other module, is that workflow, deeming it complete, staff review, report and decision, if there's hearing or not, managing the appeal period, and then ultimately, closing it, final decision, whatever you want to call that. If you would like that document, I'm happy to share that with you.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could email that over.
Sure. I'll email it through the meeting invite, so you'll probably see it come through the meeting invite.
Okay, great.
A quick question.
Well, thank
So
you. Yeah. Okay.
what are next steps? I think that Public Works, we're pretty ready to make this transition. Of course, I want to share what I've learned, but I've sort of got the go ahead to start this process. So again, I'd like to confirm, but assuming that opinions have not changed, what would the next steps be in terms of getting going?
You would really just need to email Kelly and me and let us know that you want to proceed. And then it's really a matter of, once we know that, Kelly usually is the project manager on what we call add-on projects. So those are existing agencies that already have the building module and want to add on additional modules. And they're kind of, it gets juggled because it's, our first priority is new implementations of building modules. So it really would be a matter of figuring out when our next add-on project is going to be. Right now, tentatively, I think that's probably starting up sometime late in the winter, early in the spring is kind of what we're looking at.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, thank you.
And just a note for
Okay.
Darren, real quick, is if Darren, it would probably behoove your agency to decide if you want to do planning before then as well, because we do that add-on project once a year. So, and we're a few months away from starting this year's, or at the end of this year, we'll be doing our add-on project, and we probably won't be doing it again till late next summer or fall. So it'd just be a good idea to get a decision either way before then, so we could include planning as well.
Okay, thank you. I
And one
appreciate that
option-
information.
You bet.
One option you would have, you were asking kind of about data conversion, is to create spreadsheets of some, like if of application numbers with parcels, you know, some basic information. We might be able to load that in, which would help you build that kind of, you know, back data. That would be an option for you too. So,
Okay, thanks.
but all right, have a good one,
Gosh, I
everybody.
did forget one thing. I'm so sorry. Just 2 seconds is, I just want to let you know, Darren, that we have the planning investigation record has been enhanced for code enforcement. So if you do have a code enforcement, code officer, code enforcement program, that's an option. It lives inside the planning module.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, guys.